As we wait for folks to join, let's introduce ourselves. I'll be first to give you an example. My name is Stephanie Phillips. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a policy analyst here at the Urban League. Please feel free to put your information in the chat, and we are so happy you can join us today. Alrighty, we're going to go to the next slide, and Jennifer, the Director of Advocacy and Civic Engagement, is going to present the next slide.
Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Jennifer Parrish Taylor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy here at the Urban League of Portland. We'd like to begin our event with a land acknowledgement. So today I would like to acknowledge the people whose land we are gathered on. Present-day Portland is located on the traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapua, Puya, Malawa, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers. Let us also acknowledge the robust Native community made up of the tribal diversity that originates from around the country and whose journeys have brought them to Portland by ways of forced displacement or seeking opportunities. Lastly, I would also like to share a quote by Kutcha, Riesling Baldy, PhD. Land acknowledgement is good, but land back is better. And I will turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next slide. Perfect. As we share space, I would like to set our community agreements. First, take space, make space. But be mindful of how much you speak. Please leave space for others to speak. Second, one person at a time. Third, stories stay, but the lessons can be shared. Please keep this space confidential when stories are being shared. Fourth, respect each other. No one knows everything, but together we know a lot. Fifth, take care of yourself. Be attentive of your body. And lastly, be mindful of how your words and actions impact others. Honor impact in others' lived experiences. Next slide. Today we are going to learn about what testimony and public comments are and how we can share our experiences with the Portland Charter Commission. The goals for the workshop are, first, to understand what testimony and public comments are and why they matter. Second, to learn about the Portland Charter review process and how you can get involved. Third, to explain how you can share your experiences with the city government and voting system through testimony. And lastly, to practice sharing testimony together. For the first part of our presentation, we are going to learn all about what testimony is and how public comments are used. Testimony and public comments are written or spoken statements that are used to express your ideas, opinions, and personal experiences. They are commonly used as a way to hear from community members about important issues, policies, and processes. They can be used to deliver a message about specific laws or changes that can impact you or your community. Testimony and public comments can be used to express support or opposition to a proposed change or policy. It's important to note that the testimony we are going to be talking about today is not testimony that is given in the court of law. For example, if you were to be a witness for a legal case. So what outlets are there? What outlets are we talking about then? The type of testimony and public comments we will cover today are used in city government and state government bodies and processes. At the local government level, some spaces where you would be able to share your public comment are during city council meetings in front of elected leaders or during city, committee, and commission events. The City of Portland uses public bodies called committees and commissions, which are groups of Portlanders that are responsible for reviewing certain issues. The Charter Commission, which you will learn about, is one of the public bodies. The local government also includes processes that Multnomah County and the Metro Regional Government host. Those are two other outlets where you could make your voice heard to local leaders. At the state government level, some spaces where you can share public comment are during legislative meetings, public hearings, or town hall gatherings with legislators. Next slide, please. Yep, that one. Thank you. Making your voice heard and sharing your input about how a specific issue impacts you or could impact you is a pathway of creating systemic change. Your perspectives can help identify problems with our current systems and shape the future of our city and our state. You don't have to be an expert about something to speak about it. You're an expert about your own life and your experiences. We all bring unique lived experience about how we move through the world and how we interact with our systems. And this is valuable for us to share. Next slide, please. You can provide public comments in person at certain city buildings or other locations, or you can also provide public comments online through a virtual platform like Zoom. During the pandemic, virtual opportunities to share comment have become more common. Public comments can also be written and submitted to a specific email address, or they can be verbal if you'd like to speak during a meeting or an event. There are options to do both that meet your comfort level. You can write or share your comments in any language that you prefer, and there is no limit to how many comments you can make. You can send written comments more than once or participate in a public meeting more than once. Next slide, please. Next, we're going to be going over the guiding points that are going to be key when you're getting ready to structure your public comment. Introduction. It's always good to start with a greeting. It's always good to start with by greeting the public body that you're sharing your comments with. Share your name, pronouns, and what area you live in that can be included in your introduction so leaders that are listening know more about you. State your purpose. At the beginning and end of your public comment, be sure to emphasize the key message that you want to deliver. Stating your purpose means that you are clear on what you want others to take away. If you are in support or opposition of a specific change or policy you want to make, or if you want to bring awareness to an issue, you want to name that issue and why it is important to you. Next, share a personal story or personal experience that connects to the message you want to deliver. Your lived experience is unique. That is why it is valuable for you to share. Why does it matter? Be sure to tell the leaders or public body why the issue matters to you and how it will affect your life. Personal stories resonate with others and capture more than a statistic or fact can. Numbers are limited, but your stories can be expansive and capture more details. Next, we have framing and talking points. It is important to talk about each issue in a way that will move people to understand. Take the time to list 2 or 3 key points that you can connect your issue to when you're talking about it. These talking points don't have to be numbers or figures. They can be details that support your message. And lastly, wrap up your public comment with a conclusion statement. If you don't have a chance to wrap up your comment, that's totally okay. But planning ahead and practicing before can help you manage your time. You can end your public comment with a quote of someone that you look up to, or with a final summary of what your main message is. Next slide, please. And now Ronnie, the policy analyst here at the Urban League, will do the next slide.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks to everyone who came. It's nice to see some familiar faces. So providing testimony is a powerful way to participate in the charter review process. So I want to go over exactly what this process is. Every 10 years, the Portland City Council selects 20 Portland community members to serve on this group called the Charter Commission. These commissioners go through an extensive application process in which the City Council looks for Portlanders with diverse backgrounds who have experience championing community needs. This commission has one primary responsibility. They are responsible for reviewing our city charter to recommend changes and engage Portlanders in a conversation about the changes they would like to see. And so this whole process is called the charter review process, and it's happening right now. So where are we in the process? The Charter Commission has been researching how our current city government and voting system work and gathering input from Portlanders like you about the problems that exist, as well as brainstorming solutions. On March 31st, they will take a vote to decide which proposed changes they would like to officially be drafted by the city attorney. And then in May, there will be some public hearings for Portlanders to provide feedback about the drafted proposals. And then in June, the Charter Commission will vote on their final recommendations. These recommendations must have the support of 15 members or more, and then they will be on the ballot in November for Portlanders to vote on. Recommendations that have the support of only 14 members can be referred to the ballot by a vote of the City Council. Ultimately, Portland voters will have the power to decide on the proposed changes. Portland currently has a commission form of government and is the only large city in the US with this structure. Right now, there are 5 elected leaders in the commission government, the mayor and 4 city commissioners. The mayor and the city commissioners share responsibilities and have huge administrative roles. They directly manage the city bureaus, which means they're responsible for that bureau's daily operations and delivering city services like water and parks. They're also responsible for passing laws and deciding how our public dollars are spent. Our current government structure strains our city leaders and makes it hard for them to interact with communities. And then next up, our other policy analyst, Crystalline, will speak about our form of government.
Thank you, Ronnie. So the Charter Commission has come to some areas of agreement about what can help to address the current problems. The first is the city councilors should no longer run bureaus, and we should shift the management authority elsewhere. Shifting this responsibility can help free up our city councilors to be more accessible to Portlanders. The second is that we should clearly redefine the roles and responsibilities of the mayor and the city council. In our current system, the mayor and city councilors share responsibilities which make it difficult for Portlanders to know who is responsible for what. Redefining the roles of the mayor and the city council can ensure that Portlanders have a clear pathway to voice government action. All right, so the Charter Commission is considering shifting from the commission government to either a mayor-council government or a council-manager government structure. In the mayor-council government, the mayor acts as a chief executive of the city and is responsible for carrying out our laws, policy, and budget. The city council passes laws and approves the budget. There is also a chief administrative officer who is nominated by the mayor and approved by the city council. The chief administrative officer is not directly elected by voters and focuses on managing the city bureaus to administer city services. The other option is a council manager government. In the council manager government, the mayor has limited executive responsibility and does not directly carry out the laws. Instead, there is a city manager who is hired by the mayor and city council who carries out the laws and manages the city bureaus. The city manager is not directly elected by voters. Here, the city council has the same role. They pass laws and approve the budget. The biggest difference between each government structure is who serves the executive role of the city. It's clear each form would allow city councilors to focus on policy and streamline the management of bureaus. When we talk about how our city council elections work, there are 3 key things that affect how we vote: constituency, voting method, and timing of elections. The word constituency refers to the people in an area a leader represents. A leader can either represent the whole city or represent a geographic area of the city, like Northeast Portland. In Portland, the mayor and the four city commissioners represent the city as a whole, which means they run for office citywide and any voters in the city can vote for them. The open seats for city commissioners are marked positions 1 through 4, and each candidate decides which position to run for. Then voters pick only one candidate for each position. Let's say there are 4 candidates for position 1. As a voter, you would only be able to choose one of the 4 candidates for that position. Portlanders hold city elections every 2 years. During election years, Portland has 2 total elections: a primary election in May and a general election in November. Any candidate who wins more than 50% of the vote in May wins instantly and gets elected in the primary. If no candidate wins more than 50%, the 2 candidates with the most votes move on to the general election in November. If a candidate does not win more than 50% of the vote during the general election, the candidate with the most votes win. The Charter Commission has come to some areas of agreement about what can help to address the problem with our elections. The first area of agreement is to increase the size of our council. Portland has 5 elected leaders, and the Charter Commission believes that increasing the number of elected leaders can help to bring more voices into decision-making by increasing the capacity of the City Council to listen to the concerns of our diverse communities. The second area of agreement is to shift City Council seats from being elected citywide to being elected by geographic districts. This means City Council would represent geographic areas rather than the whole city, which would help to increase geographic representation and help elected leaders better understand localized needs. The third area of agreement is to shift to a form of voting that allows results in one election and captures people's preferences. This means getting rid of the primary election so there is only the general election instead, and allowing voters to have more choice on their ballot rather than only picking one candidate. One idea the Charter Commission is considering is called multi-member districts. A district is an area in which an elected leader represents the people who live there. Multi-member districts mean that more than one elected leader would represent each geographic area. So for example, let's say Portland was divided into 3 districts like in this graphic, and 3 elected leaders represented each district. The Charter Commission believes the system would increase accountability between communities and elected leaders. Because multiple leaders would represent one area of the city, this would also increase collaboration for geographic issues between those leaders. Multi-member districts also work well with proportional voting, which helps to give minority groups more representation on the city council. Proportional voting is a system in which multiple winners, are elected in one election based on their percentage of the vote, rather than having one candidate with the most votes win. Proportional voting means that a candidate doesn't need 50% of the vote to win and reduces the barrier this can cause. All right, so let's move on to the forms of voting. Currently, voters can only pick one candidate they want to represent them, which is the ballot you see on the far left. Let's say that you decide to vote for candidate Andres, so you mark him as your only choice. This can be tricky, especially if you were stuck between 2 candidates who you wanted to win. The 2 alternatives the Charter Commission is considering are ranked choice voting and star voting. However, there is a stronger support from the Commission for ranked choice voting, so we will focus on that today. Ranked choice voting is a voting method in which voters have one vote but are allowed to rank the candidates in order of preference. So let's say Jada is your top choice, so you rank her in your first choice spot. And let's say Vera is not your top choice, so you give her the 5th spot on your ballot. You're able to mark your top choice candidates and your least preference candidates too. Choice voting was used in over 43 jurisdictions in the most recent election cycle. Using ranked choice voting, it's clear that voters get more use out of their ballot and get to express their preferences for their candidates. Voters don't have to rank every single candidate. They can fill out their ballot as much as they would like. All right, so I'm going to pass this back to Stephanie.
Alrighty, thank you, Crystalline. That was a lot of information, and we would definitely be able to answer questions and go back if needed. So we will start now that we've got all that charter review process and the changes that are being considered. Let's go over how you can share public comment with the Charter Commission. Next slide, please. Alrighty. On Thursday, March 31st, the Charter Commission will take a vote on their initial recommendations for the form of government and the city council elections that Crystalline mentioned. These next few days are a crucial time to make sure that your input is considered on what our city government and voting system should look like. You can submit written public comments to charterreview@portlandoregon.gov to make your voice heard. You can also sign up to share verbal comments during the March 31st virtual meeting that starts at 6 p.m. We will drop the links in the chat. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so we know that was a lot of information to process, and we know that it can feel overwhelming, knowing where to start when it comes to writing your public comment. These guiding questions are great points to get you started, to inspire you, and to get you thinking about these topics. What have been your or your community's experience with the Portland city government, including receiving services, asking for help, or interacting with elected leaders? Do you think that our current government structure is serving you well? Why or why not? What changes would you like to see with our government structure, if you have any? What have been your community's experience with voting with the Portland City Council elections? Do you think our current voting system represents you well? Why or why not? What changes would you like to see with our voting system, if you have any? Before we practice, I would like to model an example of what a public comment can look like. As you listen, think back to the guiding points that we just talked about to help you structure your public comment. Good evening, Charter Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Phillips. I am excited for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Today, I hope to highlight the importance of providing voter education in multiple languages in culturally specific ways. My preferred language is not English, and oftentimes, many of the community members don't vote because they don't have language access to the voting materials. Breaking down language barriers will increase voter turnout. One of the main ways I have seen my community receive information about voting has been through community-based organizations that host information sessions. It is important to build partnerships between the city's efforts and the organizations that serve varying communities. I would like to wrap up by saying that there are many barriers to participating in our local elections, and language access needs to be addressed. For democracy to work, it must include us all. You will notice I stated my purpose at the beginning. I shared my personal experience with an issue. I provided specific examples of how this affects me and my community, and I made sure to wrap up by repeating my main message. That is the basic recipe for what to include in your public comment. We can pause for a discussion up here in this slide. So I'll go to this next slide and then we can pause for discussion.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. Thank you so much, Stephanie. You know, there's a ton of information that we went over, and I just want to pause to see if folks have questions about the process, what the Charter Commission is looking at, and then also to the questions that Stephanie asked. I'd love to hear from you all on the phone, kind of like what, or on Teams, I should say, how would you like to see the government work for you? What issues do you come across? What do you feel works well? What doesn't work well? These are all bases for the testimony you would be submitting, which Stephanie will walk us through later. So I just want to pause there and give folks on the line an opportunity to chime in.
Um, I'm not really sure how to bring this up, but I really feel like the houseless situation, that the people that are experiencing houselessness, their voices aren't getting addressed as much, and how to provide opportunities for people who are houseless to feel welcome and to join in this.
I mean, I think how you just said it is perfect. I think one way you could frame it, in the letter to the Charter Commission is that, why, this issue is important to you. And essentially all of what you just said would work perfectly in terms of, you'd want to see not charter commissioners, you'd want to see commissioners, rather, city commissioners really focused on like working together to solve these problems that treat folks in a humane way, and really center them in the process, etc. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else?
I see Babs is raising her hand. Do you have something to say, Babs?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to let you know that I have been fortunate that I have attended 2 of the Charter Commission meetings that have already taken place. My experience was positive. There were not as many members of the public attending as I had imagined. And in each of the meetings, there was 45 minutes allowed for public comment. Folks could sign up ahead of time for public comment, and then they were called upon with an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. The other thing, and you all, I'm sure, know about this, is the Charter Commission has already produced 2 progress reports, and there's a third one that is actually due out today. And I don't have the link in front of me, but hopefully you can provide that. It's through the Charter Commission. There's a woman named Sophia that is providing this information to the public. And the progress reports go into great detail about all the areas that were covered earlier, particularly the 3 points of agreement thus far. The 3 points of agreement thus far are to move towards a structure of having the mayor with the more limited powers, and then hiring, the mayor would appoint rather, a city manager. And that city manager would oversee all the numerous budget bureaus, sorry. And the other point of agreement that you mentioned was to expand the number of city commissioners, to divide Portland into at least 5 different districts. For example, Northeast Portland would be a district, and up 2 or more council members could be elected to that district. And then the third area of agreement that you touched on is the change to the ranked voting system. That seems to be the one that most people are in favor of. There's another form of voting called STAR, STAR. That form of voting doesn't have a track record. There are cities in the United States that have adopted the ranked voting, and it has been successful. So I just wanted to give people that information. And the Charter Commission folks were extremely receptive to the public comment. I just voiced my support for the areas of agreement and why I agreed with them. So thank you very much. Do you happen to have the link for people to access the progress reports?
Yeah, we'll send those out. Our intention is to send a follow-up email after this event, and I'll have a
Good.
survey, and we'll have attachments, and we'll send the links for all of those progress reports. I
Yeah,
think.
that they are.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. They're really long and detailed. However, they're extremely useful. I mean, they really explained in detail the work that the commission has done. It was formed in March of 2021. It explains the hours and hours they have spent, the work they have done. Um, and then it's pretty amazing, actually, that they have come to these three major areas of agreement. And that's what the focus will be then in the meeting on March 31st that you already mentioned. And then in May, you also mentioned this, there will be numerous opportunities for meetings that the public can attend and make comments. So I'm sorry I spoke so long,
No,
but
you're
I'm
fine.
just letting people know that um, it's worth signing up and joining these meetings. You don't have to say anything, but just to listen to the explanation and what others share was extremely useful and beneficial to me. And I did get up the courage to just speak for a short period of time. So thank you very much for listening.
Of course. And thank you so much for sharing. I mean, that's why we have these events, so that members of our community can share information, can share ideas, and because we want everyone to be as informed as possible so they can make the choice that's best for them and their families. I think Saul had her hand up as well. Oh, looks like she may have lowered it.
I just wanted to, first of all, say thank you, Babs, for giving public comment. I did have a chance to watch that last meeting, and it was super great to see everyone who participated. And then I also wanted to share that the new progress report was just published. I did put it in the chat if someone wants to, open it right now, but I know Jennifer will send out that follow-up.
Awesome. Is there anyone else who wants to share just in terms of like your experience with city government, what you'd like to see change, your kind of response to what the areas of agreement are, etc. If not, we can turn it over to Stephanie to walk us through our practice.
Alrighty, I'll take us through our practice. We can go to the next slide, please. Alrighty, so here are our practice templates. We will be sharing these templates out as well as template and public testimony tips. So if you're going and getting testimony, there's vocabulary and all different kinds of resources to help you so you can feel more comfortable and be like Babs, which is amazing. So here are the two templates to choose from, but you can also do your own. You don't have to submit a public comment about all the topics the Charter Commission is considering. You can choose to focus on government structure or the voting system, depending on the topic you feel more comfortable with, or have more experiences to share about. You can be as specific or as broad as you like. You can talk about proposed changes you want to weigh in about, like the role of the mayor, the size of the city council, the voting method, and so on. Simply write about what you are most passionate about. So we're going to take some time, if everyone's open to it, to practice the templates and fill in like maybe what you're passionate about, or if there's ideas or topics that you may want to include in your template, or writing your own. We can take a few moments to just kind of bounce ideas off of each other and practice. This is a safe space, and we want you to feel comfortable to do so. If there's anyone that would like to go. Thank you.
Babs, not to put you on the spot, but I'm curious what your public testimony was when you worked up the courage to give it during the meeting, if you feel like sharing.
Okay, thank you. I started by introducing myself and saying that I am almost 74 years old. I've lived in Portland my entire life. And I am, for the last 40 years, have lived in the old Portland neighborhoods in either Northeast or Southeast Portland. That I currently live in Northeast Portland, in an old Portland neighborhood, Sullivan's Gulch. And essentially what I did was say that I definitely agreed with switching the form of government to whereby the mayor would appoint a city manager. And that manager would be in charge of overseeing all the bureaus. The task of overseeing the bureaus, as it is currently, is extremely cumbersome and time consuming and difficult, and actually has gotten to the point where it's virtually impossible for the 4 city commissioners to oversee the bureaus. One of the people who's in attendance at this meeting earlier mentioned the homeless community. And as we all know, that issue is paramount. But there just simply hasn't been the person power to focus on that specific issue. Anyway, and then the other thing I said was, given that, I definitely supported the idea of dividing the city into districts and having 1, possibly 2 representatives from each district. There are some cities in the United States that already have up to 12 city commissioners. Seattle has adopted changes along this line, for example, and several larger cities in the United States have had to look at restructuring their city government the same way we are doing. So anyway, I mostly spoke in support of what the forms of the agreements are that the city commissioners, I'm sorry, that the charter commissioners have already come to. So I'm sorry, I kind of got off track there, but that's how I structured it. Again, focusing on the fact that I'm a native Oregonian and extremely committed to living in and being a part of the older neighborhoods in Portland. The Charter Commission, the Portland City Charter, which is what governs how the city council operates, hasn't been changed in 100 years. That was mind-boggling to me, and I'm sure you had heard that statistic. When the commission met 10 years ago, that's what they're required to do every 10 years. From what I can tell, nothing much changed. And as you already know, even 10 years ago, Portland had expanded to have so many diverse neighborhoods and populations. So, okay, I'll be quiet now. I feel like I've spoken too much. Thank you. Bye.
No, you're fine. Thank you for sharing. I think it's super helpful for others to hear just like how you frame the issue for yourself. I'd love to hear from other folks. Yeah, to Stephanie's point, like, are there things you'd want to change about the template or include, or other issues you'd want to highlight as part of your public comment? I can speak from the Urban League of Portland side of things in that we submitted public comment in support of the areas of agreement. Still a little undetermined around which voting system would be best for our communities, but definitely in support of reevaluating that process, because we do believe that the process should be equitable and should be reflective of the concerns and the needs of our communities. So we got that in today, and we'll continue to monitor the process, and we'll continue to engage and comment as we go along. I guess I do have one other question, and I'm also asking a lot of questions, but I'm just wondering if there's anyone else on who's on today who has participated in giving public comment before, and if so, what was that process like for you?
Alrighty, so we're going to wrap it up. It sounds like so far, not everyone here has provided public comment, and that is totally fine. We still have time, and we just want to encourage you to make sure that you can get your voice heard, either by doing a written comment or going to the meeting on the 31st and providing public comment. We are going to send you everything to help you get prepared from the public comment and the template tips and resources and just language to help you frame how you write you can either use these templates or you can write your own. We're also going to share the templates with you, and we will share this presentation as well to kind of help you move through the different areas of agreement. We did give a lot of information today, so we're going to make sure that we get you everything that you need so you feel prepared to write your public statement, or sorry, your public testimony or your public comment. And we want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you all here. We are also going to include in that email, you're going to get a lot of stuff from us, but we want to make sure you're prepared. You're also going to get a survey regarding how this event went. Any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear how we can best serve you. And we want to thank you again for joining us today, and we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.